Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, I guess, the first, our first episode was like introductions, and our first episode where we get down to the nitty gritty. I'm your host, Asher, aka Pinoy Grigio. To my bottom left is Jennii, aka Tiger Lily. Say hi.
Hi.
And then to my bottom right is JSB Zen, also known as Rob or Rib. Hello. Hello. Yeah, now that I have like the shakes out of the way, after our initial like anime cast, it's just been raw excitement now. I'm just like, we've been kind of hyping it up. Now that we're like getting to the thick of things, we're hitting our stride for like what we want to do. But also there's like a weird excitement to, what if there's something that doesn't work and we fumble the bag? Like like how can we fix that? How can we improve this thing? And so I'm so excited to, I don't know, see if this really works for us, because this is such a cool thing that we're doing where like we're gonna roll with the punches.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of like we'll take it week by week, and we're not always going to get everything right. Not everything is always going to be smooth, and then we'll just evolve over time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's how it always goes.
That is how
I'm
it
sorry.
always goes.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. Failure is not an option.
You're right.
That is a perfect type of mentality to have when we eventually start talking about Blue Lock. But before we start talking about Blue Lock, I do want to talk about, like, because while we do focus, that's going to be the primary focus on the episode. So with this stuff, maybe we don't spend as much time as maybe we want to with them, because I know some people have seen some spicy anime aside from Blue Lock recently. I did want to ask if either of you goons have, if you're watching other anime aside from Blue Lock, and I don't know, maybe just like give me like a sentence here or there about like what you're watching. I know for me it's a lot because I consume just a ton of anime. Not that you have to do that, but I'm always just curious as to like if you guys are watching other things. So I want to go ahead and start with Jennii. Jennii, are you watching any other anime aside from Blue Lock? And if you are, can you maybe give me a sentence about how you're like feeling about it, and then maybe a brief sentence about like what it's about?
Okay, so Mob Psycho.
Which season?
The latest one. So season 3, I think, is where we're at now.
Okay.
And the first impressions are, I don't feel as funny as I thought I was, because I'm just enjoying watching Paul crack up so much harder with Mob Psycho than I am. But it's really up his type of humor. But I do think seasons 1 and 2 were funnier, so I did think I was laughing a lot harder with those ones. This one, it almost feels a little forced for me. Like they're trying to borrow that humor that Mob Psycho is famous for. The dry pan face that he always has. The animation style, right, is famous from One Punch to Mob Psycho.
Yes.
So that's how I feel right now, but I still really, really appreciate the stories that they develop. And oh my gosh, Mob Psycho kills it with that intro. Like, the intro animations have always been super good.
Yep.
I really like the outro music too. They choose a really good mood setter that works for whatever tone it ends in. I do really like what's happened with some of the characters too. Like, often in a hero's journey, they have to lose the tutor at some point.
Oh, okay.
And who is defined as a tutor is also dependent on, I guess, what did they take away from that person? Because sometimes a love interest can double up as a tutor.
Yes.
So it's interesting. A villain can also be a tutor.
They can.
Right. So it's kind of cool to see who they chose to make the tutor that he will have to lose.
It's not Reagan? It's not Reagan. All right. Interesting. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch because I haven't watched it myself yet. So, hopefully, I can make time for that. Anything else, or is it just Mob Psycho right now?
I'm watching actually Last of Us, not anime, but
Oh, okay.
it fills my need to love of zombies. When I can't when I can't watch Last of Us, I'm playing Project Zomboid.
Yeah.
So.
I completely understand. Those are, and it's a great show, I hear.
Yeah, I've been meaning to start it.
And video games are anime adjacent. Come on.
They are.
They really are.
Even the main character.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Rob? Anything interesting you've been watching?
Two things.
Okay.
So I talked last time how I was in the middle of a rewatch of Fullmetal Alchemist.
That's right.
The OG 2003 anime with my friend Drew. It's his first time watching it, and we just finished it 2 days ago.
Yep.
And I still really like the original.
I do too.
Yeah, it's there. I know there's some points, especially like in recent years, I feel like there's been a turn on it where like a lot of people just disregard it and say don't watch it at all, and I don't believe in that at all. Right?
Me either.
There's some pretty cool stories. I do enjoy like the Brothers Elric. Like I know that one is kind of a hot spot for a lot of people, but I do enjoy those characters. And it's really interesting to see like this version of Lust in comparison to like Brotherhood and some of the other characters. So I left on it just as impressed by it as I did originally. And we're gonna go ahead and watch the movie next week just to kind of close out that story.
Shambhala?
Yeah, Shambhala. Okay. And then sometime next week we're gonna go immediately into Brotherhood. And it's gonna be really fun watching those two back to back. Because also Drew doesn't know where they separate in terms of story. So it's gonna be really fun once like some new characters start showing up, and it's like, what is this?
Yeah, that's gonna be a blast.
And then we just completely go off the rails into another direction. So yeah, pretty cool stuff there. And I'm also keeping up to date with Trigun Stampede, which I am deeply in love with. I love everything that they've done with this show. It is a retelling of the original show, but it's like a different telling of it, right? Like a different interpretation of what that original story was. And it's interesting because I kind of wish, and this might be a little side tangent, but I kind of wish more anime did this. It's something that like I appreciate out of like Western comics and stuff. Actually, I know we've talked about this a bit, and I've talked about this with my friend Max a little bit, but it's interesting when like you have, for example, like Batman, right? And there's like a bunch of different writers of Batman comics, right?
Yes.
And some are great, some are misses, but it's really interesting seeing other people's different takes on like this property.
Yes.
Right? And there's some really good stuff that can come out of it. So Trigun Stampede is kind of something of that, where it's like a different person takes this property and we're like, okay, we're gonna keep all these characters, we're gonna rearrange them a little bit, we're gonna keep the overall like idea of the story the same.
Yes.
But we're just gonna have our own little spin on it, and it's been hitting every single time. And there's one particular episode where they reintroduce one of the villains, Monev, and they give him like a really good backstory that connects to Vash in a way that wasn't there in the original, that I was just like,
yeah.
You know, it like hit really well. In some of the redesigns for like Zazie and some of the other characters that show.
I've been hearing about that.
Oh, it's so good. So like when done well, I think I'm really interested in people's different takes of these IPs that, you know, we've come to love, right? So I wish we could get some more of that. I know there's probably going to be like a lot of pushback from the anime community because, you know, you don't want things that are different, right?
I already feel, so I need to catch up. But for me personally, and we might have talked about this before, I already feel like it's the best version of Trigun. Like, which might be like really bad. Like some people, you know, you could go ahead and clip it. I'll own it. You can at me.
Yeah.
But it's like, I hate to break it to you when I tried watching it. It's like the fact that we hop into it, you know, and just we're immediately into the like the nitty gritty like emotional connection with Vash. I'm like, I don't know how you can tell me it's not like immediately engaging, you know, by comparison.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like in the original anime adaptation, you don't get into Vash's storyline until like way late into it. For like the first 12 to 15 episodes, it's like
So
Vash is
many
this bumbling
episodes.
idiot.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you may get like this moment where you're like, "There's more to this guy than we really know," right? But with Stampede, it's like the opening scene is just like we're getting right into his backstory, and it's like, holy shit, this is insane.
I straight up teared up.
Yeah, and then cut forward, and now we see Vash as this bumbling idiot, and you're like, there's some trauma here we need to work through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally see how people would like gravitate towards like this one being better over the original. I think there's points in both camps, I feel. Because also when the stuff hits in the original, it's just like it hits in a way that you're kind of not expecting. It just shows up, and you're like, "Wait a minute, what is this?"
Yeah, and that's the good stuff.
Yeah. I think there's some value there as well, but also I can also understand why it wouldn't be like immediately engaging or captivating, you know. But yeah, I'm loving what Stampede's doing. I don't know how many episodes they're going for. I want to say 11 or 12.
I heard this. How many have you watched?
I think 8.
I don't know why, but I heard this last episode is the last episode.
Really?
Am I wrong though? I might be wrong.
I don't know. I think that there's one episode I haven't seen yet, and I think that just aired yesterday or the day before or something.
Okay, then I might be wrong.
If it is, then all right.
Yeah, exactly. You're
I'll
there.
report back next time.
Okay. And those are the two you wanted to highlight? Just
Yeah.
give an update on?
Pretty much. I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about the other thing we watched.
I am. I don't want to go...
So
It is very easy to go into hours of discussion for what we watched. And I'm not going to do that because we're here to talk about Blue Lock and we're here to talk about sports. But...
are you telling me cave diving is not a thing?
But Rob and I did watch, along with a couple of other friends, we did watch season 2 of Made in Abyss. And it's a lot. It left me emotionally drained. I really just don't want to go too much into it, but it's so easy to. I'll just say I hopped into a Discord call with my friend who really wanted me to watch it, and we just kind of reveled in the misery that show gives you. It's just like we talked about those last, like after episode 7, it just kind of just sits there throughout the entire time. You're just sitting in pain. And it's like pain and suffering, and I get for people it's just awful. Like, you know, some people just don't enjoy the catharsis of like watching something just so sad and miserable. I'm not one of those people. I like that feeling.
I like pain. I like suffering.
Yeah, but I completely get it. And that's Made in Abyss 2 is way more suffering than 1. I think narratively it's messier, but world building wise more compelling. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't it's so easy. It's so easy for me to just go off the rails and just be like, suddenly it's not about Blue Lock, it's Made in Abyss season 2, which would be really funny to do considering I'm assuming Jennii you haven't watched that.
I haven't, and Paul gave me a big rundown. I listened to our stream from last time, and just the description that you gave is fitting what you're saying this time, where you're like, 2 is apparently so much. It makes the first one look like lollipops and rainbows.
Yep.
It does.
It really does, which is like very bizarre.
It's interesting because before we finished it, because we left off on like episode 6 or whatever, and then continued with it yesterday.
Yeah.
I was sitting here thinking like, okay, again, I'm watching stuff with my friend Drew, and I'm showing him anime and stuff, and I was thinking about Made in Abyss. And I was like, is this something that I should show him? Because he is someone that is like very sensitive to like that kind of violence, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, up to where we watched the last time, I was like, I think he'll be okay with this. I think we can get through it. And then after we finished our session yesterday, I'm like, I am going to retract that statement. I don't think I can show him into this. I think it's too much. That show is a lot.
After getting to a certain point, I definitely agree with you. Which is a shame because I think he would enjoy the pain, but the violence is oh man, it's violent.
Too much.
Especially the second season, it's so violent. So there's that. I did watch the Kaguya-sama movie, which, if any of you know me, Kaguya-sama is one of my favorite anime. On any other given day, I would have had that in the top 4 that I had mentioned last time we met. Because I love Kaguya-sama. It's very quintessential to me. And I watched the movie, and they picked arguably a perfect arc to be a movie. The animation team was fantastic on it. And they nailed what I wanted as a person who read the manga. I also watched D4DJ. I'm caught up to D4DJ. The anime itself is mid, but this last episode was awesome. I'll give a brief rundown of that episode because it's one of the weirdest things I've ever watched. Essentially, there's this DJ group, and they have to come up with a song that they're going to perform. But during this episode, one of them wakes up, their primary DJ, and she can only speak English. So suddenly this episode is in English. And it's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. Because, like, all the other characters are like, I don't understand English, can you speak Japanese? And she's like, she doesn't know she's speaking English. So she's just kind of like, what do you mean? I'm speaking Japanese. And it's like, that you're absolutely not. Here, write something in Japanese. And so she writes, but she writes in English. And then they're like, do you not understand? And she's like, what's going on? And then suddenly, like, throughout the episode, there's, like, situations where she wakes up in a different place that she started sleeping. It's so bizarre. And it plays up into their theme, because they're known as Happy Around. They're this happy-go-lucky DJ group. They've never done anything kind of, like, even remotely scary. And so they were like, why don't we try something like that? And so the last song of the episode is like, it's this weird homage to horror movies. And then the episode is almost like a dream. Did this episode, like, actually happen? And it's strange, but I'm so into it. I found it very curious that the studio was just like, we're going to do an entire episode in English. Or not an entire episode, but one of the characters is just suddenly going to only be talking in English. So, yeah, there's that. Reddit covered Made in Abyss. We also finished Kakegurui Twin, me and Rob.
Yeah, that's right. We did do that.
My long and short of it is, it's a 6-episode season of a spin-off. And I just feel like I didn't really gain anything from it. And I kind of just wish they had another season of Kakegurui. Moving on. And then the Night of Short Walk-On Girl I rewatched. Which, if you guys have...
that movie.
If you guys have never watched Night of Short Walk-On Girl, it is... It's my second favorite... Hold up, I'm thinking.
Oh.
It's either my second or third favorite anime film I've ever watched. I know number 1 is Eva, right? Or Eva Thrice Upon a Time, but, like, where is it? I don't know. It's in my top 3. From Yuasa, who did Tatami Galaxy, Devilman Crybaby, which I've never watched, but really, really need to get on that. Just, like, fantastic shows, really very specific art style to him. And I wanted to fit in Night is Short before before the end of February, because I'm one of those people who's like, I can feel a little bit of Valentine's Day energy, and Night of Short Walk On Girl's the only thing that gives me any semblance of love. So why don't we watch it? And I like Jennie's face. I can't wait to make you watch a romantic comedy. I need you to know that. I'm so excited to get you to watch a rom-com.
Oh, man.
Just you look.
I've never felt so stressed in my life.
So without yeah, that's pretty much covers all the the massive amount of stuff I've been watching. So without further ado, why don't we get to the subject at hand? Let's talk about Blue Lock.
Blue Lock.
Starting with before we actually talk about the anime itself, I actually want to kind of know y'all's backgrounds in regards to like either sports or sports anime, or like competing. So like, Rob, did you play any sports growing up, or is it really only fighting games that you get your competitive fix from?
I was never on a sports team, right? Mm-hmm. But I did play sports with like friends, or I would help friends practice, right? Mm-hmm. So I learned how to play hockey, strangely enough. That's a weird Rob fact that nobody else really knows.
Is it because you lived up north?
North, So one of my best friends played hockey, so I learned how to play hockey to help him practice on off days.
Are you good at skating?
I used to be. I haven't skated in like 15 years, but I'm pretty sure it's like riding a bike. Mm-hmm. But no, most of my competitive stuff comes from video games, right? From fighting games. So like I was a competitive Smash player for a very long time. Before 2013, I would say. I played a lot of Smash, and then after that was Street Fighter and a lot of other modern fighting games. So I've always been like a super competitive person. So when it comes to like sports anime, I often relate not necessarily to the sport that's going on, but towards like the mentality behind it, right? I get really, really attached to these storylines. So I've consumed a lot of sports anime.
So like fighting games is normally like a one-on-one sport. How do you feel about like? Because I guess there are definitely like sports animes where it's like the solo player, but how does it feel? Like going into these like kind of team-based anime, and it's just like these are the mental loops that they have to like jump through when playing with teammates.
It's interesting. It's something that like I understand, but like being a solo player, right? Like it's not something I have a lot of personal like experience with, right? But I understand and I follow the logic behind it. I find it very fascinating. And a lot of times, like, that stuff kind of applies to when you do, like, team battles in fighting games, right? Even though we're not necessarily, like, playing together, it's still, like, a 5-on-5, and we have to have faith in one another or help other our teammates, like, practice up to learn, like, the things that they lack. You know what I mean? And sometimes it comes... you think about like an example of like Blue Lock, right? Where like you have those moments of like, okay, this person is going to be guarding against this person. You're matching up the individual players, right?
Yeah.
And like that is something that I can follow along as well, being like a 5v5 exhibition where it's like, okay, we got to make sure we get these matchups right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are your strengths? How are we going to use that to overcome like specific people on their team, right? So like there's overlap there, right? So it is something that's easy for me to follow, and I enjoy that stuff. But there's nothing like a good like 1v1.
Do you like that you don't have to deal with those mental constraints often? Like live in action, you don't have to be like, oh, this bitch Asher, like.
Honestly, it's less about that. It's more about me. So I have the problem where it's like I feel like I'm letting other people down, and am I pulling my own weight? Is where that comes into play. So I can't do team stuff because of me, not necessarily because of everybody else. It's why I never really got into like League of Legends and some other like team-based games, because I have like that sort of anxiety about playing on a team.
Oh, I understand. I suffer it all the time. Okay. All right. Well, that's neat. How about you, Jennii? You're wearing a jersey. You. Please tell me the sports that you continue to play or have played in the past. Actually, I'm curious.
Yeah. I think it's really funny that Rob starts talking about how I just, I don't have to think about the team or worry about the team, and I'm like, how could you not? There's only a team and nothing but a team. So stressful. With Blue Lock, and just in general, I mean, that was where the conflict came in. So my niece plays soccer, so
rad.
She's visiting me for the weekend, and she plays soccer. And I told her I was explaining Blue Lock to her because I said I'm gonna do this thing for a little bit while you're hanging out here. I'm gonna go talk about an anime called Blue Lock. It's about soccer. And she's like, well, what do they talk about with soccer? She doesn't know anime at all, so context of like, how do you make a whole show about soccer that's not just the cup? And she said, I was like, okay, this is an anime about the conflict of psychology between being a soloist and having to be the best on a team sport.
Yes, correct.
So I think that's the conversation we're kind of having here. I think your approach to it of I'm not good enough for the team or I may not pull my own weight is not actually where people's mind goes when they talk about being the soloist in a team environment. It's I am better than everybody. Everybody else needs to be on my level. Is where we think is the conflict, but it's not. And we'll probably go into that a little bit more later on. But yeah, played on sports teams, but also kind of grew up having to do a lot of things myself. Like I wasn't able to have a lot of freedom and resources. Like my parents couldn't drive me to go play soccer, and I didn't live in a good neighborhood. So if I wanted to practice, I had to do it on my own. So my shadow was my training buddy. And the brick wall, because when I used the wall that had siding, it would make this loud banging sound.
Yeah.
So wasn't supposed to do that. Yeah, and then the other side of that too, military, man. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about a team. But you also still have that conflict of like best soldier.
I love that.
So yeah, that's immediately where my mind went. So those are two areas that I can speak on that dynamic that comes to mind when I'm watching this whole thing. And also, fun fact, Paul and I, when we were rewatching Blue Lock, because we had seen all the way up to episode 8 by the time we decided that was going to be what we watched.
Yep.
So we rewatched a little bit, refreshed, and then watched the next 4 episodes. I texted one of my favorite buddies who I became friends with purely through soccer. In my adult life too, not even through like school or anything. We just met through a recreational soccer team.
Oh hell yeah!
And so I was like, I just found out recently that she's into Naruto, so she watches anime. And I said, watch Blue Lock for me, and she said, okay, I will. Text me a couple days later, said so. I started on episode 8. And fuck this guy. Well, you guys will probably know who I'm talking about, but yeah, she was just like, I want to strangle him. I want to like go toe to toe with him and show him what a piece of crap he is.
Yep.
How could you betray your team like that? You know?
Oh yeah. I'm excited to talk about that. Yep, very excited to talk about that.
Just how angry she got, and with her personality as my friend, just for like how she is as a person.
Yes.
No wonder this completely destroyed her in terms of like this is everything wrong with a person.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll
so
definitely
funny.
go into how you play may represent whether you go to heaven or hell. That death parade bar concept, right?
Yes.
And then the last thing I have to say about this is, okay, in my review of Yu Yu Hakusho from forever YouTube ago, I talked about how it's a best friends anime. Like it's all about friendship. So even though there's individual parts of it, but it is ultimately friendship and team and stuff. And so I could not help but think of Yu Yu Hakusho a lot while watching Blue Lock, and I'm wondering if you guys might have some similar thoughts.
So, it's funny that you mentioned that, because definitely when I first watched Yu Yu Hakusho, it was a like darker-sided anime amongst like the shonens that I'd watched up to that point, right? The happy-go-lucky like kind of Dragon Ball stuff and other kind of like brighter feeling shonens at the time, and it's funny for me to get into Blue Lock because, right, I have my good boys doing good things in Haikyuu. Love Haikyuu. gives me a lot of joy to watch Haikyuu and watch those good boys do good things. There's something about the goons in Blue Lock who are not necessarily good boys sometimes, you know, like, a lot of them are not good boys, and the kind of, like, attitude that they have, it sates the other side of my personality that's just like, yes, that's one of the more admirable things is when they, like, bind together as, like, a team and overcome this thing, but there's also that egocentric energy that we know every member in the cast of Yu Yu Hakusho has. Every single one of them has that
Absolutely.
ego, and so like Blue Lock is like no different. You know, it has that energy. So I'm definitely.
It's a really good comparison, actually.
It is.
I didn't think about that, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, it's that same energy.
It really is. And so that's like a lot of fun. Yeah. So I was genuinely curious about that with you two because I'm kind of like in the middle, or at least I personally view myself in the middle. I also grew up in a military family, played sports, got into sports for the wrong reason, because when you move around a lot, you get so many opportunities to change yourself, right? And so in middle school, where I was a loser and a dork playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and then I like moved for high school. I was like, I want to be cool. And you know what? You know who's cool? My older godbrother, who was the starting point guard of the AT Mahan Vikings basketball team. And I was like, I'm going to learn basketball. I suddenly started like hitting the gym and like getting reps in, learning how to shoot, like becoming like a basketball player and learning how to play. And like, yeah, getting into it for all the wrong reasons, but then learning that I like loved it, you know.
I don't think that's a wrong reason.
You don't think so?
As soon as you said that, I was like, I'm sorry, what is a wrong reason? I was waiting for like a nosebleed scene where you think about your first crush.
Oh no.
And that's entirely the reason that you took up sports. That's what I was thinking he was gonna say. He's like, it's a wholesome thing if I had a role model. I wanted to define and learn myself, so I got healthy. Learning to get reps in at the gym.
No, it was definitely popularity.
Like, I guess your idea there is that you don't necessarily have love for this game.
Yeah,
is where you're coming from. I'm assuming
it's an out to make friends.
It could have been any sport whatsoever. It doesn't matter about that. It's just you're looking to make friends more or less.
Yes.
Did you grow to love it?
So I did, and that's why I think about like if you have you watched Haikyuu, Jennii? No? There's this really great moment in Haikyuu with my favorite character on the main character's team, where as the play, my favorite thing in sports anime, time kind of stops and they go in their own head. He has this flashback of people kind of asking him, why do you play volleyball? You know, you don't come across as a guy who like puts their heart into it. And then like it flashes forward and somebody points at him and he says, one of these days you're going to have a moment and you're going to realize exactly why you love this game. And you know, it's intercut between with him just being like, I don't really care for the game, you know. And then it cuts back, and he blocks the shot of this guy. It's like the best spiker in Japan. He manages to block him. And then it does one more flashback, and it's him in the locker room saying, I might not be able to block every shot. But I'm going to try to block, and I'm going to block at least one. You know? And after it cuts back to the present, and he remembers that, like, you're going to have a moment where you realize that you love this sport, he just screams. He like puts his hands down, he goes, ah, just like pops off. And it's such a moment for this character who's just like he was always just the kind of like, I don't really care that much, I'm not putting my heart in there that much. So to watch him pop off made me absolutely lose it. It makes every character in the show lose it. They're just like, oh my god, I didn't know he had it in him. And it was a moment that I resonated with a lot because I remember at a certain point, there was a game that I played in. It was like a 3v3 like local tournament, and for some reason I was really like feeling it that day. And there was it was like an on base like 3v3 teenagers like tournament, and I don't think people really considered us much of a threat. That's usually how it goes with my teams because I'm not like a particularly like flashy player. And I just remember as the time was like winding down in our 3v3 game, there was this moment where somebody was running in for the layup and I switched to like help, and I jumped up and I swat that ball so hard and it just flies out. But at the same time, this like one of the like photographers for like the on base newspaper took a snapshot at like the same time. I never was able to find a picture, but it's that feeling of like a moment was like captured, and like I remember in my head, one, I destroyed this person. Like I destroyed this person that people thought was gonna like beat our team, and he didn't beat our team, and like just the kind of like thrill. And of course, like I popped off, I was screaming, and we were jumping up and down and stuff, and that's definitely a moment that is like etched in my head, and I think to myself, man, I love basketball. And then it only like grew from there. I ended up like loving more sports after that. It was hard not to fall in love with soccer, or I won't say fall in love with soccer, but I did live in Italy when they won the World Cup, so that was crazy. The countries go absolutely berserk for that stuff. Football, I'm wearing a football jersey right now. Actionville Swagwars, you know. And yeah, I don't know. And then also I have the backdrop of competing in fighting games, the solo type of games, the mental strain. Rob knows I go through a mental strain. I have the biggest mental strain in fighting games right now.
Goes through it. Goes through it.
So, you know, I get into my own head a lot, and I think that's like a lot of the fun with any sports anime is like getting into your own head. Well, so you Jennii, you haven't really watched many sports anime? Like what other sports anime have you watched, if there is any?
I think just Prince of Tennis was like the only other one.
Just Prince of Tennis. Okay.
Although, I mean, anything kind of feels like a sports anime if it's a game.
Actually, yeah.
Like, you guys were talking about, you know, fighting games, and I'm like, or you know, video game fighting games.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm thinking about there was this one. It was in Shonen Jump. It was that game Go.
Hikaru no Go?
Yes.
I started playing Go because of that.
Yeah, and it has the same mentality, right? And that's a soloist one, right? But you still can find ways to become a team, and you know. So I mean, all of them have that same feeling. So maybe I haven't watched many sports ones, but I get that team aspect that comes through. Like, what was another one that came through? When they My Hero, when they do the tournaments or like the class A class versus class B stuff, you know, it's like they become a team. Still, they have to work together. There's a lot of animes that do that. So while I feel like maybe I haven't watched sports specific, it was kind of like maybe I wanted to get away from it and listen to that same conflict in a different light. You know, that maybe it's not just in this. Maybe it felt kind of narrow-minded to only talk about it like as a sports anime.
So so now that you brought this up, this is actually another question. Now I'm interested in the sports that you play, Jennii. What type of role do you think you fit in on a team?
So when I was younger, I was definitely a lot more timid. Always wanted to be defensive. Like, very much, if you think about RPGs or MMOs, I'm the one that wants to play long distance. Or when I was a kid, I wanted to be that long distance, like observe from afar and then make my strike in the most opportune place, right? Then I got a lot more aggressive as I got older for some reason.
That happens to a lot of people, actually. When you become more comfortable in your like skin, I would say.
the opposite can also happen where you realize how much it hurts.
That's very true. That's absolutely
when
true.
You get hurt. So you get less aggressive, but I think I got more aggressive as I got older and was like, you know what? No, I want to challenge myself and I want to get out of my comfort zone of staying in the defense and actually get really good at striking. So I only did striking. I only wanted to be forward. I was like, when they're asking people, what do you want to do? I got tired of seeing the females always put in the back for co-ed teams. So I was like, no, I'm a striker, guys. And they're like, even though I wasn't.
I love that.
I believe in it.
To the point where now when people put me in the back, I'm like, you don't want me there. I tell you right now, you do not want me there. I will score my own goal on ourselves. So, yeah, and I started tanking a lot more when I started playing MMOs. I love playing a barbarian when I play D&D. I want to be the first one like running in. That's usually how I am too as a person. Like,
yeah, take that initiative.
That might be dangerous. I'm like, I'm going in, guys. Going in. Take one for the team. If I go down, you know what to do. Go. That's my personality now. I don't know whether there's like a mental shift where I was like, I'm tired of being the one in the back who doesn't see what's going on. I gotta see everybody over everybody's heads, like what's going on. Like,
I love that.
True egoist.
Yeah, you've unlocked the egoist. You've been forged in.
Yeah. But there is a one. Actually, towards the end of the episodes that we had to watch, this was new to me watching the last 4, that I really related to the character because of that struggle that they felt having to take a step back from being the egoist. And that's something I definitely want to dive into. If I can, I can do it now.
Yeah.
If now's a good time.
We will give me a little bit. Give me a little bit. I'll get us there. Don't you worry. I know you're excited. I will get us there. What about and then Rob, when you're playing, let's say you're playing in a 5v5 fighting game tournament, what role do you think you fill when you are like matching up? What do you think is like ideal to slot you?
Oh man, put me somewhere in the middle. Put me somewhere in the middle, because it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, right? Where I'm not particularly confident in myself a lot of times, right? When it comes to like carrying a team, right?
That's insane to me.
That's insane.
That's insane to me.
So I don't want to be the last up, for example. But also, I don't typically like being first either, because I want to see where the other person stands, or kind of what the other team is bringing, right?
Yeah.
So usually it's somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
It's weird.
All right. Well then, let's actually get into the anime itself now. We've covered the background of like each one of us, like touched on it a little bit, and we can go ahead and hop into it. Jennii, let's go ahead and talk about what you wanted to talk about. What are you excited to talk about? Let's go ahead and start. You were mentioning this. All right, first let's kind of cover Blue Lock. Blue Lock is a soccer anime, but it's not like Captain Tsubasa or Whistle. It's not really done on a traditional field. It's like a soccer battle royale. 300 high school students, all strikers, essentially have to compete to become Japan's next top striker, because they believe that is what's going to take them over the top. It's really funny that this is the premise of this anime, because this past year, Japan has gone farther than they ever have in the World Cup. Is that correct? You actually fact check me.
Not correct.
Not correct.
Yeah, they've come second actually in third and few. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Japan historically performs very well in the World
Cup.
Oh
my gosh, the way I didn't know that. But they've never won the whole thing.
Not that I'm aware of. Not in recent years, anyway.
Okay, so this World Cup though is considered a little bit of a miracle run for them, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they I don't know what was like working against them in this one. I didn't really pay attention to that team the most. I was just really worried about my Jennii making it through.
Of course.
But because they didn't even make it past the round of 16. But they had a lot of matches where they thought they would have been a shoo-in, and they lost to those games. But the ones that they were like might be at a disadvantage, they won those ones. So it's like they almost over-prepared and under-prepared for the ones that they were like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, for those who don't know, their jerseys are actually designed after Blue Lock, which is awesome. I kind of want a Japanese World Cup jersey for that reason. And we have this main character, Ishigi, who comes across as like your average Joe. Couldn't take the like final shot of a game, and we see him at his lowest, arguably, and he gets invited to this thing, this battle royale, to determine Japan's next striker. And not only is it like observing your soccer skills, but it's also meant to forge your ego into one that would like be able to carry the burden of bringing Japan a world championship.
The burden of world championship. Right, sir.
We'll bear the burden of like carrying a team to it, right? Carrying a team through it, and through this process, he kind of like befriends other people who have their own reasons for playing. And kind of they're forced to like work through this together and acknowledge how their style of soccer fits in with one another. And it's I don't know, it's really interesting because it seems like the intent is to get everyone to be selfish, but you can't be 100% selfish. It's a team sport. So yeah, you had mentioned, Jennii, that there's a character. You were saying that you. Yeah, let's go into it. What did you say again before? That you had mentioned there was a character on the tail end of this season.
Yeah. So there's a character who. It's funny because when they're trying to learn how to be a team, they all try to study each other's weaknesses, and they don't actually study. They just ask, "What's your weakness?" Yeah. Everybody willingly gives their weakness except one.
Yep.
And then that one character, you find out the weakness eventually. Of course, they're not going to be able to hide it, So it comes out, and their weakness is one that every player has dealt with, which is a previous injury.
Yes.
I was really curious how they're going to handle that, because a lot of them would use this as a handicap that just carries throughout the story. Or they find some way to make it their superpower instead of an injury. My nephew actually plays travel baseball, for example. He lost one of his fingers on his dominant hand. And he plays baseball, and so they're like, but he's a pitcher, and they're like, well, it's actually going to add an extra spin to your pitches now.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
They said there's another player who also is missing a finger on his pitching hand, and it gives him like a little extra spin that others can't account for. So, yeah, it's a small difference, but it's like a way that they kind of pitch it to say, hey, it's not as bad as you think,
Right.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Now he's actually going to play on a team in college, so it's really cool.
That's awesome.
So it was like, okay, they have a few different ways they can go about using this potential disadvantage, right? But the way that they talked about that fear that hits you when you have you're playing with an injury or a previous injury, and that one more could cost you everything, and you're like, for what? So that moment where you're talking about that, you're like, why am I doing this again? Like, why am I here? Why do I care?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just here for one more game. If this is the last game I play, so be it. It's like, how can you let that be a thing?
Yeah.
I'm like panicking inside. Like, I've had that a few times, and like, how did I respond though? Like, I remember I had a really, really bad injury, so both knees got taken out in a game.
For you?
Yeah, in one game, both knees got taken out.
Was it ACL or MCL or? Yeah.
It was more of like a twist.
Okay, thank God.
Like one had like kind of tweaked a little bit, and I was like, I'm not feeling too great, but I'll come back in, and then it got wrecked, like two defenders sandwiched me basically.
Yeah.
And it was a co-ed team, so it was two males that were a lot bigger than me. So I was like, well, that sucks. It was like one of our championship type games. And for recreational soccer for adults. So it's not even like we were in college or high school or anything. That's nothing right on this game. This is literally just was Monday so I can get my cardio in kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize like what that would mean for me in my life after that. Like I'm just thinking I'm like 24 years old, it's fine. And so I got super destroyed by the game, and I was like, all right, it'll take me a few months to recover. Was walking around with crutches. I think I had started a new job too, so I was coming into my like third or second week at work, and I'm like, the weekend just passed. So and they're like, and she's coming in on crutches. Okay. Is this normal? Then I realized, I realized, oh my gosh, this means that I can't play again for a little while, which is okay. But then when I came back, my speed was gone. Like exactly like what happened to that character. My speed was gone, and that was one of the only advantages that I had to these much bigger players.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, I realized I would shy away from potentially really aggressive attacks because I was like, oh, maybe not worth it. Like just pull back a hair because I'm like, oh god, I'm so scared. Like I'm so scared. And it took a really long time to get past that and realize it was okay to have that fear. I really don't even know how I ended up resolving it in the end.
Yeah.
I think I developed a different skill set. Probably did a lot more assist than anything else.
Yes.
After that, so, but yeah, it was really terrifying, that moment of like it really does come down to me having to be aggressive, and I don't know if I have it in me. Like it's truly scary. Like if it comes down to one more accident or incident, I'm out. Like for other things in my life. Like I lived on a second-story apartment. I had to have my dad carry me up the stairs. And he was like in his 70s with a bad back. But there were no other options. I was gonna basically have to sit on the stairs and like butt scoot myself up every step to get there. And I mean I would have, but it was like this is a really weakening moment. So that the way they had that storytelling moment of what it feels, that fear, it actually felt real. Now, I don't know how younger me would have felt listening to the story, though, because I know that when I was younger and watching animes where a character talks about their weaknesses and their, like, disability or a handicap, I would just be frustrated. Like, whatever, suck it up.
Yeah.
Get over it. Just do it.
Just get over it.
Yeah.
Just Super Saiyan mode, you know?
Exactly.
You'll be fine. It's worth it, this one thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, maybe as I'm getting older, man.
I'm curious as to how you would feel if you watched season 2 of Uma Musume.
Oh, please.
Which is just that's its entire narrative arc is dealing with injury. And I'm just curious. No, we're not gonna go into the weeds of that. That's a completely different thing. But I do. The sports injury thing is very compelling, and certainly as you get older, and if you feel the effects of any injuries, you realize how dire it is, and you can thus relate to it more. I mean, I did physical therapy for the first time in the past year.
How mortal you are.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of weird, but it's almost like a second coming of age, right? Like we talk about narratives, and coming of age is one of the most common ones, and I feel like sports almost gives you a second coming of age that remind you of your mortality. And these characters in Blue Lock are treating soccer like it's life or death.
Yes.
And it's not. It's just they may never play soccer again for the World Cup. You can still do other teams. You can do that what that one guy does and go to another country and play for their team, which a lot of World Cup soccer players do.
Yes.
But this is like a life or death thing, and if they don't give it their all here, they can sustain. They're not like in My Hero where they have this nurse that can kiss them and then they they are giving themselves like a potential permanent disability.
Yes. It's funny that you're mentioning that because I was telling my sister, who was also watching it with me, because this anime was giving her the exact like joy she wanted from watching a sports anime. And we hit that arc. I had mentioned Yao Ming, which I'm sure a lot of people know. He's a world famous basketball player. But Yao Ming's career wasn't that long. He retired very early, and the specific thing he cited Even though he had only played for like I want to say it was like only 7 years, which is not a long NBA career. That's like where you hit your prime. He had just had his first kid, and his career was already plagued with injuries. It was hard not to with his frame and being like 7'6". And he said, "I'm retiring because I want to be able to play with my children. I want to be able to like move with them as I like hit these like moments of their life." And I was just like, "Oh, mad respect, dude!" Like,
yeah, for real.
Because he really was one of the best in the world at that time, and so I completely like get that there might be some things more valuable than that, right? And do you want to throw away that part of your life for it? How let me open up my notes here.
The notes are open.
Let's see. I want to know. You had mentioned Chiguri. There's so many interesting characters in this show, and they're all kind of freaks.
They're all insane.
They're all like kind of freaks in their own way. Like, is that the character you resonated with the most, Jennii? Is it Chiguri?
Actually, I think it's Bachira.
Really? What is it about Bachira that you liked? Bachira's a freak.
Yeah.
I love Bachira. Yeah, what is it about that character that you like?
I am willing to throw everything for somebody else. So I am very comfortable with throwing away everything for others, not for my own personal gain, even though I will gain something from it by proxy.
Yeah, of course.
It's so much easier for me to be the assist, to feed off of someone else's energy, and go fucking insane level if it means that I can support somebody else and be their freaking cheerleader champion. I mean, when Bachira has his moments of doing something out like wild, it will be like a one-time thing, but it's because he knows it'll get everybody else riled up.
Yeah.
And it works. And it motivates him more than anything else that he could just do for himself. Even though he knows he has the ability, there's motivation's gone. There is no energy. There's no fuel for it.
Yeah.
So that is just the coolest thing, and I that's how I feel like I am. I'm absolutely a team player kind of a person. Even though as an individual, I have a lot of like competencies.
Sure.
They come out most strongly and go the next level if it's in the name of a bigger cause, bigger picture than myself. So 100% Bachira.
Hell yeah, I love that answer. How about you, Rob?
So it's funny because my favorite character in the one I think about a lot is actually Chiguri.
Yeah.
And it's not so much because of like an injury or overcoming an injury, but there's a moment in his character arc where he's really like finding a reason to quit, right? And that's something that I've been through as well, where like I get the idea of like you're at a really low point, right? And like there's something about the activity that you're doing that like you just keep being drawn to it, but you're looking for the out. You're looking for the reason to just like
the reason to stop. Yeah.
The reason to stop, because like you're not in it for whatever reason it is. You're just not in it anymore. You don't have the confidence anymore, be it an injury or be it sustaining like a very terrible loss that just shot your confidence levels.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I've had those moments where it's just like you're constantly going like 0-2 when you know that you could do better, right? And it's just like you're at a point where like, do I just stop? But I can't stop. But I want this reason to just quit. Just give me this reason. So like that part of his character arc, I really felt strongly for, right? And when he finally kind of overcomes that, I think about a moment as well where like I had a very strong placing what I did, and I was just like that kind of reinvigorated an energy, right? That was like right before COVID stuff happened and everything shut down. But that like reinvigorated like my reasons for what it is that I am doing, right?
Yeah.
So there's something about that arc that I'm just like, this is really, really good.
What's up, Jennii?
Yes.
I think that's actually something more than just athletic thing. It's and competition. I think it's also like art. You have that moment. All artists do. Of why am I still doing this? It is taking so much out of me. What do I get out of it? I think you probably deal with that too, Asher, because you're
Don't
you're
do this.
super-
No. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
You need to lie on a couch. You need to pull out a notebook.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out this is just like the Asher psychology moment.
Welcome to JSB therapy.
I'll mention it. I'll talk about it a little bit, but I want to hear what you have to say first because you're yeah.
I think I've said enough.
Yeah, it's a so it's funny. It's funny that you're saying that because until we started this thing and kind of like arguably until I met JSB and all of the beautiful goons here, I thought I was an incredibly creative person. You know, I've been through film school, and in film school there was this energy that I just like. I don't want to sound too, you know, arrogant for myself and my energy, but I thought I was rather exciting to be with, which is why like I think a lot of people had me on their film sets was because I had this like excited, infectious energy. It didn't matter what the movie was, you know? It was like, there's something about this movie that could be fun to make it, even if it's not something that I would make. And when I moved to Atlanta to pursue filmmaking, there were things and dramatic events in my life that started to happen that started to kill off this person. This person who like viewed art as something exciting and like wanted to kind of like embrace constantly. And for a long time I thought it was completely dead when I like ended up moving back to Jax and then had one last try to make something for I think HBO was having like a Asian American short film contest, and I was like, I'm gonna make something. It's the first like truly original thing I've ever written. It was like close to my heart. And then the person who I had asked to film it bailed on me like the week before, and it was just like absolutely heartbreaking because this was a person that I was with for like a long time, and it took like half a decade of just feeling like I'm not gonna try to do anything anymore. I'm done. You know, the fire is dead. There's just no reason for me to do that because it's just going to get shot down. Especially like you could pursue individual creative things, and I started to, right, with streaming and stuff like that. But there is something that I simply love about creating things with other people, even if their ideas differ from yours. And it wasn't until it was almost like physical therapy. I met JSB, and slowly they would be like, hey, let's watch some movies. And I'm thinking to myself, no, every time I've tried to hold like weekly screening sessions, nobody shows up. And then I'm alone, and then I don't get to do this thing. Sorry for the trauma dump. But they were really coming out. They really were embracing this, and they showed me that they were having this excitement about doing this. And it just fed into it. All of a sudden the fire in me was growing, you know. It was like and then eventually I just had to be like, Rob, I kind of want to do an anime podcast. It surprised me, you know. And then talking to you about it, Jennii, that day, it'd be like, oh man, Jenny's like opinions about this thing excite me. I wonder if she would want to do the podcast, and you mentioned that you wanted to do the podcast. So like, I thought we were going to get into this at a later episode. Like, this is going to be like a later character arc explanation. But it's fun that we're getting into it now. So it right here in the first episode. But it really is like, now that we're doing this and I'm with you guys and just kind of the excitement that we're tackling with it, it is that moment of chicory for me. It's
Yeah.
I had felt for the longest time that my leg was locked down and that I couldn't just run. But now I feel like more creative than I ever have been, you know? Like I'm just constantly, you can ask Rob, sometimes I'm just like, what if we did this thing? You know?
Yeah.
I invite people over and it's like, let's try this thing, like cooking too. Like I'm just like, yeah, cook for me. I wanna taste all these things. I wanna embrace all these things, and it's just a constant like stream of ideas now. Suddenly, I think if a younger Asher saw me now, he would be happy. I wouldn't be in the place that he would have wanted to be or thought he would be, but I think he would be happy seeing me now, and I think that's great. That's a great.
This is the shot where like Asher is starting to walk away, and you just see younger Asher just give him like a push, and he's just letting him off. And then the credits start rolling.
I can't.
I'm having a moment here. Like that. The anime, like. Oh, no.
So I appreciate that you said that you were like Asher. I bet you feel it too. I didn't know it was written so much on my face, because it's true. Like it's. I definitely still I struggle with that and the hesitancy because of like art and stuff like that. But now it's better, and I'm embracing that moment now. I'm running while I can, you know, just like Chiguri. And yeah, that's a very good character pick, and probably like one for one, I probably relate to Chiguri the most. But weirdly, and this rarely happens, I think my favorite character is actually Ishiki. I think my favorite character is the main character. You know how I had mentioned before that, like, when I had moved from middle school to high school and moved countries, I could rewrite myself? Ishiki is constantly doing that. The puzzle pieces, right? They, like, fly off of him. There's this, like, weird motif of, like, the jigsaw puzzle thing. And he kind of breaks himself down and then, like, rebuilds himself into, like, another person. That, I was like, huh. I weirdly relate to that, and it's funny seeing that specifically in a sport, which is something that I have done, moving from place to place. And there are just these moments that like hit. I had mentioned to you guys that game, that realization of like why I liked basketball. When they beat Nico. When the team beats Nico and he looks at Nico's eyes, we barely get to see Nico's eyes throughout the entire game. And there's this sheer, like a weird fear. Nico looks like a child. He looks like a child who just, like, lost his mother or something. Poor guy.
Not a phase, Mom.
Poor guy. He got destroyed. And I was like, oh yeah, I get it. You know? I get that feeling. There's like a monster inside, you know? And it's cool seeing a character like Ishiki kind of like embrace that, and Bachira be like, oh, I know you got a monster inside you. You know? Like,
What I really like about this show, actually, the idea that there's a monster inside of you that is just like calling you to do these things. And it's like, you have these ideas of being like that main star, that main character, and you're just like, am I gonna like take the lead, take this shot, do whatever, you know? And it's just like the visualization of a lot of that stuff in the show is just like really amazing. I love it when like their eyes start swirling and like they're almost in a trance, right?
Yeah.
It's just like overcome with this like, I'm about to do it.
Yeah. It's
you know?
People talk about that thing in sports all the time. It's clutch factor. It's basketball fans know it as the Mamba mentality.
Interesting.
It was coined for the famous Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant himself, who when the game.
Sorry, I only know that from Kill Bill.
That's Kobe's nickname, Black Mamba. And so, because Kobe was pretty famous for being like very clutch, in those final moments, hitting the game-winning shot. I don't remember who coined it, but a sports journalist coined the term Mamba mentality, the killer instinct. You know, that thing where like Kobe hits that game-winning shot, and then all of a sudden he has this like scowl on his face, like, yeah, the monster came out, you know, and put these people to bed, put them in the dirt, and it's over. It's watching them kind of like convey it in the anime is so cool. It really, like, it always sends chills down my spine when they do that like close up,
Yeah.
and then you just see the character's eyes, especially since every character's like eyes are like a vivid color. Like Ishigi's is blue, Chikuri's is red, Bachira's is yellow, like a very bright yellow. And so like usually when they're doing stuff with him, like sometimes it's like black and white, and then you just see that very vivid yellow. It's and then they're all either like gritting their teeth or they're smiling, and it's just like, whoa. It's just like a chilling moment of awakening that kind of thing. Do you like, I guess, how do you feel about like that aspect of this anime? Do you guys like that it's kind of like these characters, they're building these characters to be, I guess, selfish. Like, do you, I'm trying to think of what exactly I want to ask here. Because it's definitely necessary for like a world level striker to be selfish, right? But
Jennii looks like she got some thoughts.
yeah, actually, like, do you have any thoughts on the matter? Like, do you think this is like, I guess, as crazy as the anime is and its narrative is, do you think something like this works, Jennii?
I had questions actually.
Oh, okay.
When he's going through, I don't even know the main, like the guy who's like devising this whole plan's name, but
Ego. His name is Ego, which is so on the nose.
I was so mad because for a while, like, I didn't catch that, and then like, I don't know, it was like episode 10 or something. Like they mentioned it again. I'm like, they really called this bitch Ego.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, I thought I was mishearing that, but okay. Yeah. Okay, so he's...
Shout out to anime.
Shout out to anime.
So he's fucking Freud.
Yeah, exactly.
When he's talking about his psychology of how he's gonna make this work, I had serious, like, sitting over here, like, as if I was one of the stakeholders that he has to propose this whole plan to.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, you clearly don't know because you've never played before. That was my...
I love stakeholder. Yeah, I love stakeholders, Jennii.
Love it.
It was in my head. You know, I was imagining myself as one of those businessmen who would just apparently was like previously drinking sake with everybody at the bar, and then we go over this boring meeting that we have to go to invest in the next big thing. And I was like digging into the psychology of what he's saying. I'm like, that's so stupid. All right, here we are setting up for an anime.
Yeah.
And then he would surprise me with some of the things that he was like, actually what I'm trying to find is this, you know? And so you said you must have that striker mentality of like being selfish. It's not though. It's a split moment decision of, do I have a higher likelihood of taking the and getting a goal from here? Or is it waiting for this guy to get into a view where he is prime in his spot? And then you go back to being a team where you know where their best spots are. It's like, if it comes down to, you know, Alex Morgan is famous for being left-footed.
Yes.
Being a left-footed striker. So if she has an opportunity to be, and she's in like the right spot, and I have a choice between me making a shot, and it's like 50%, for her, it's like, oh, that's her best spot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to her. And it's not because I've been paid to like feed her ego or anything like that. It's purely because the stats are better, and that's thinking about the team. So to incentivize them to take the goal 100% of the time is not true, though. That is not what they did. You see times where it's like they do have that opportunity, and it actually does not benefit them to do that.
Yeah.
And so, will this kind of a system work? It could. And that is exactly what soccer coaches are always working through. Like, anyone who coaches and teaches, he's basically just being a coach of the best players in the world who already come in with a massive ego. So you have to beat them down. Tell them, he does that, right? He tells them that they're all level Z, Team Z. And it's like, actually, you guys were all like Team Z of only Z through W. There was no A, B. I was
Yeah.
like, when I saw those characters, I was like, holy shit! If that's what W is, what the hell is A doing? Like,
yeah, exactly. That makes
are they
complete
up there
sense.
like getting massages for the next like 3 weeks because they have nothing better to do because they're just already amazing on their own? I mean, you even had a character who was like that, right? Who was just good without trying. We've all known those people too.
Oh, yeah.
But like then
Absolutely.
he got his ass handed to him too, which was awesome and gratifying. Might be a little bit of trauma sitting there. But I think there was really great strategy on Ego's part where I started kind of patting him on the back a little bit, being like, as much as I hate you, it's kind of good.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what you're doing here.
Yeah, okay, so you would say, despite everything he's kind of saying, because his words belie, based on what you're saying, his words belie his intent. It feels like what he's saying is like, you gotta be really fucking selfish, you know, you wanna take the shot every time, you know, but then he's actually putting them through it to understand that it's not just that. And the only way to do it is to be put through this situation. Would you say that?
It's interpret it in this situation, right? One of the most famous poems out there, "The Cold Within," is about being selfish, but also realizing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that's the defining difference. Of course, you're going to hold on to your safeguards, the things that are going to keep you safe. But then, if you don't think about the bigger picture, if it's going to help everybody else, you will also perish. So then, ultimately, you don't win.
Yeah. It's so funny that you're saying that, because I one of the most fascinating things to the show for me is the puzzle motif. The puzzle motif is one of my favorite things in the show. And would you say that Ishiki's talent is developing the bigger picture? He puts the pieces together in his head and it comes together.
What do you think, Rob?
Honestly, yes. Honestly, like that's really what they're building towards with him. Because you see that constantly with that character, especially like towards the later arc. So like I caught all the way up, right? Like I
did too.
Watching. After like last night, I just kept going, and I think they're on episode 20 or something right now.
Yeah, I did too.
But there's a whole arc with him where it's just like constantly like, okay, he has the entire field, like he's almost like a top tier strategist, right? Where it's just like, how can I use everybody else around me to further this agenda to get this goal, right? Keeping track of like where everybody is and how can I make these plays, right? Not necessarily just for him, but for everybody else. And when it doesn't work, it's like you have to break himself down, right? Like you said, the puzzle motif is really cool, right? Because like, he's breaking himself down, and then he's like, he learns something new about the game, right?
Yes.
Or learns something new about other players, and he's just like, okay, this completely changes how he processes like the strategy around this game, and then it's like, okay, now I have a clearer picture of what's going on in this field and what everybody else is doing. Here's the new strategies around it, right? So I think his skill is definitely like this clarity of like what is happening everywhere and keeping track of everything. Really feels like they're building just to be like it feels like the role that they're playing, because I'm not big into soccer, but like this role is more just like a real leadership role, right? Where it's like where you're kind of just in charge of directing the team and getting this goal, right? Where it's just like, how can I utilize all of these talents to secure the bag, right? And that's basically what Ishii is focused on.
Okay. If, as of right now, what we know about the characters, which character would you pick from the main team? Let's only do the main team because it's easy to get into it with the other teams. On Team Z, who would you want to be a striker for your team? Not necessarily who you think is the best, but who you would want to build a team around. Let's start with Rob.
Wait, what? Let's start with Asher. Give me a second.
Okay. Let me. Start with me.
Yeah. Flip the script.
Processing. I'm surprised.
I can help buy you some time if you'd like.
Yes, actually.
Time.
Go, Jennii!
Yes,
I wasn't ready for my... I can't believe I got reverse Uno'd.
That doesn't stack, bro. We can't do it again. I would actually... I really like Kunigami, who is the really deep-voiced, lion-head-looking character, but not the one with the shark teeth.
Yeah, he's the one with the powerful left, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's reliable, and he's predictable, which is very, very helpful for a team. So if you think about it from the enemy perspective, you're like, well, because he's predictable, he makes it difficult to keep on your team as like the forefront, the one who's going to score all the time or whatever. But it's the rest of the team that's going to be all the variables we can't account for. And if you're talking about how each player on the soccer team is less than 10% of the variables in a game, it's good chances. But it also might be my Germanic love of the game. But for sure, of all the characters and all their, I guess their quirks, that is the one that I feel most comfortable with. But I don't know what actually happens with him. We actually don't know very much about him as far as...
No, we don't, actually. We don't. And I'm excited to see, though. He's a fun character for me because he has the aesthetic look of someone who is, like, not approachable, but he's a sweet boy. You know? like when he shared that, like, steak with Ishiki at the beginning, and I was like, aw, what a nice guy.
Have you guys gotten strong homoerotic tones to the whole anime?
I always do when it's a sports anime. 100%. Oh, is it standard? Yeah, I would argue that it is kind of standard.
Yeah, that tracks.
Interesting.
Yes.
I was wondering if it was just me, because I'm not familiar with sports animes, but I was like, I don't remember the last time I saw an anime that only had one gender, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I wondered if that's why some of the voice actors sound like
so
females,
funny.
to create some, like, variation.
I mean, look at Shiguri, right? They call him Princess.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like Kurama, who's also heavily as, like, a female-esque character.
Yeah. More feminine. That's so funny.
That moment of the food sharing that was where I had my moment of,
I see.
They're sharing me. I don't know what to tell you. You're the one that thought it. That's a fun question. You know, I didn't even think we were going to talk about that, but you're absolutely right. It is weirdly normal. I shouldn't say weirdly, but it's like cool that it is cool that it's normal. Honestly, you know, let's be honest. There's a lot of moments where it's just like, damn, look at this sculpted guy's body. There's no way that's a high schooler. I'm just like, dude, this guy is cut from mountain. He's like chiseled from marble.
That's one thing Western TV shows have in common with anime. For some reason, everyone's in high school but 25 years old and like super chiseled without working out and sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so now, I mean, I feel like my answer is kind of safe, but a lot of it has to do with me as a person. Is I would like a team with Isagi as the centerpiece. I like the person on the fly who can cover other people, because he doesn't just like know how to like pass the ball and like get people to their like sweet spots to score or like help them score. He also like has a really good tendency to cover up some mistakes or cover up like a particular weakness. Like I think about like the Nico stuff. Once he realized that shutting down Nico was like the thing to do, the game like completely changed. And that's actually like kind of my play style in basketball. It's fun playing like NBA 2K, the video game, with like my friends, because I don't necessarily want to play like a Kevin Durant or a Michael Jordan. I'll play like a Draymond Green. That'll just be like, have me guard their best scorer. I'll shut him down, you know, but also I won't sacrifice help defense. When I'm on the court, I try to pay attention to everything that's going on, um, and just have like really good awareness, and just see like, all right, this person's thinking of doing this. My man is like right here, and I'm going to make sure that my person's locked down. But as I see the play develop, if I need to move over here, I'm ready to do it. You know, and it's cool seeing that from the main character. We kind of see what's the name is a similar character in Kuroko no Basuke, a kind of like I want to make other people better character, but I think Isagi is like so much more interesting because he views himself as so flawed that like when he starts to piece himself together and like get better in these like incremental ways, it's discovering the talent as opposed to like already having the talent in the first place and feeling like, you know, he's not like a Mary Sue. It's where he's like automatically good at everything. He has to go through these like trials and tribulations, and he's developing into his own style. And that kind of adaptability excites me. It's the reason people draft people who aren't necessarily like good yet. We see the intangibles, we see the potential, but you're essentially making a gamble that they're gonna be good, and that's what Isagi is. It's a gamble, and it's exciting to see him develop, and I think that's what interests me the most, even if he's not like arguably the best scorer or anything like that. So that's the striker I would take.
Striker he would take. So I'm gonna take Kuon because, you know, I just want to play dirty, right? We're just gonna secure the bag no matter how bad we need to go. I understand.
Is that your serious answer, or okay?
No.
We'll talk about Kuon a little bit after you say.
That is a very interesting character. I think that is really funny.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I would, as much of a cop out as it is, I feel like I would also pick Isagi.
Hell yeah.
Because it is very much something that I really appreciate out of a character, which is this idea to not necessarily to use the team effectively, right? Mm-hmm. Like to really take a step back and have that whole strategic element to it, be a strategist as it were, right? And look at the entire field, process all the data, and like, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? I like characters like that. It just happens this time it is a main character, and I'm kind of known for not liking main characters for a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Funny enough, but this is one that I just really resonate with. In this idea that he is willing to change himself, right? Where a lot of other characters resist doing what they need to do to win, right? And it's all about him or all about them, right? He is willing to not be that kind of person. He is willing to put like his faith into other people. Like, I know you can do this, so I'm going to pass this to you, right?
Yes.
I like that kind of character. And honestly, building a team around that seems smart and effective, and that's what I want out of the team. I think all the other ones are a bit too much of, as you put it, Asher freaks, to build like a reliable team around them. The closest one would be Lily. Jennie's pick. But
Bachira?
Yeah. Or no, not Bachira.
No.
My pick? Oh,
why am I blanking on
Kunigami.
Yeah, Kunigami.
Yeah. I think that would be the other like logical pick out of that group, right? But I also think playing around Bachira would be really fun too. But you would have to like really you would have the right players for it. But like let's say that character is pretty damn cool.
So we had mentioned it. You hinted at it at the start of your answer, and I do want to go into that character. Sutenshi in chat said, if I were to give Kuon credit for anything, he made me start reading the manga. Oh my God. And so, like, to me, Kuon embodies the most, because this anime is kind of reality television. There's a reality television sauce to it, and Kuon is that person in the reality TV show that would betray, right? Like, he's like, I'm gonna get this $1 million, and I'm gonna I'm gonna throw them under the bus, you know?
Throw everyone under the bus for this $1 million.
And that's riveting to me, because you say what you want about reality television, I didn't truly get it until I lived with someone who loved Big Brother, and he showed me some episodes, and I was like, oh, I get it now. I get it, especially like as a person who like loves games like Among Us or games of deceit. He's a funny character to me because like I do not hate that character. I think if I were in the situation, of course I would like hate it. It feels abysmal. But watching the character and doing that in a game is riveting to me. Maybe that's where I'm a freak. You know, I'm just like it was awesome to see him do that stuff. I don't know if you guys feel the same. Like, how do you feel about the character of Kuon, Rob?
I love to hate him. Right? Really where I stand. I think it was when he betrays the team and then it just becomes this case of like 12v10. I'm just like, this is amazing. Yeah. I love this, but I also hate this motherfucker. But it's super interesting. It's fascinating, right? But you also see like the flaws in his logic in terms of like, this isn't going to carry you very far. Like, you can't keep doing this, you know?
No.
Yeah, at some point, you have to step up yourself, right?
Correct.
So I found that whole arc to be really fascinating television, as you put it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Super cool villain, I guess.
Yeah, I would say he's the first... Is he the first major villain? I would say in that game he's more of a villain than the brothers, than the Crocodile Brothers or whatever, and it like
the Gator Twins.
Yeah, the Gator Twins. Those guys are so wacky. Yeah, I would say he's the first like truly interesting villain to me, because like Baro was like, okay, he's like the strong, overpowered villain, and then like Nico was like fun, but you know, we don't really get much with Nico. Kuon is fun because we've been with him up until that point. He was billed as the mother character. You know, he was taking care of everyone and helping everyone do this thing. And then so for him to, you know, turn it all around and be like, I'm out, I'm in it for myself, I'm here to win Blue Lock, you know. I was just like you know, I was kidding. It's a good portrayal.
It's a really good portrayal. Yeah.
It really is. Did you have, obviously your friend had very strong feelings about Kuon, Jennii, but like, do you feel the same way? Are you just like, oh, I also love to hate him, or?
It was kind of weird, but it reminded me of children, and that's something that kind of comes to mind too. Is you gotta remember these kids are kids.
Yeah, they're kids.
Yeah, very much so.
So when I was younger, there was always a betrayer. Not kidding. You play pickup soccer, there's always somebody who just suddenly switches teams, and suddenly you pass the ball and they're going towards your own goal, and you're like, Anthony, what are you doing? And he was like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this anime was just based off your life. Like...
Oh my god, please.
I don't know what it was. Like, I absolutely knew there were characters that were freaking Benedict Arnold out there on emphasis on dick, man. Like, it was annoying because it'd be like, nah, dude, like, you're one of the best players on the team, and they just thought it was funny that they could just do that, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember, like, there was these two boys that I played with on the first team that I ever played, where I actually got my parents to buy me a year of soccer lessons. There were these two boys, these two brothers, and they did that. We constantly would be at games, and the parents would be like, other way, wrong way. This is a formal game.
Yeah.
And they're like doing their own thing, but they were so good. The coach really had difficulty being mad at them.
Yeah.
And then when I played pickup at school, like at recess, so it's just recess, there was a kid named Anthony, that's why I said that, who would just randomly switch teams. And it made me so mad to the point where he gave me a Valentine's Day card and asked me to be his girlfriend. This is second grade, by the way.
Of course.
and I ripped his card in front of his face because I was so mad.
Oh my god, you might have traumatized this child.
That man for life.
It traumatized me too.
That's true. That's very true. There you go. It's revenge. I love that.
So I don't feel like that's excusable to have a character who, like, I don't even want to hate him because I'm just like, oh, he's so weak in my head. Yeah. He's puny and small, and I can't wait to him to be just a small little hiccup that I guess they had to face. The thing that was actually more terrifying to me was the 12v10. Playing man down, just one man down in a game. Holy crap! You feel it. You're suddenly 3 times more exhausted than where at the point where you started that moment where you're now man down. I mean, that's why red cards are so terrifying, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, this moment of like, not only are you man down, but one of them also was a previous team player with you guys. I mean, that's just a whole moment there. So, you know, Kuon doesn't really bother me. It was the scenarios that he put his team in that was more bothersome. So I was really curious, how are they going to handle that? And I really felt a lot of respect for the characters because they were able to forget about that as a problem and move on. And they still moved on to post game when it came to the next one.
Yeah, they did.
And that was a really interesting thought to me too. So I really don't. He really wasn't that big of a deal to me. I know my friend lost her shit over him, but she's a very loyal person in general. Extremely loyal. She's the first person I ever got a "sorry for your hangover" card when I woke up the next morning.
Incredible.
With a whole gift basket with like oranges and lactate pills and stuff and string cheese. It was really nice. But yeah, that's really my thought there, that this was really different, a really different approach to that character who becomes a betrayer, and very early on.
Yeah, it's early. It sets the stakes of what Blue Lock could be, you know, and what it could do to people. Seeing your friends become enemies, or at the end, or maybe realizing at the end of the day they're your enemies.
Yeah.
You know,
there can only be one at the end of this.
There can only be one at the end of this. What's up, Jennii?
Yes.
Did you guys have that moment in that first couple episodes where there was that buddy, or like a guy who tried to be friends with the main character, and he was like the better guy?
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, he's gonna be bad. He's gonna be a piece of shit. He's gonna be terrible.
Yeah.
He's gonna turn out to be actually a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah.
And then what actually happens to him is like, what? That's it?
I did feel that. I did feel like he was going to be more. And I also felt like he was going to come back. And maybe he still does. We don't know. But like...
We don't know.
But certainly, it was like there's also something... Did you guys find it satisfying that he was eliminated? Or did you feel bad for him?
I found it really satisfying, actually. It sets the stakes for like what Blue Lock is, right? So it's like this idea of like, okay, I could take the easy way and I can eliminate this one weak person, right? But at the end of the day, there can only be one, and your chances are better when you get rid of the stronger players earlier. You know what I mean? So it's like, take advantage of this moment and eliminate this guy. I felt it. I was like, take that shit, like, end his life.
Oh my god.
When he got hit, I was like, yes! I love this show.
Right off rip on episode 1. What about you, Jennii? Like, were you satisfied?
No, it did set the tone though. And
it did.
was, we're gonna flip most anime tropes on their head. So every prediction I've made has pretty much been wrong.
Okay.
Amazing.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
This anime, because it starts off as a very standard, like, I mean, I think honestly, he kind of main character reminds me of Midoriya. That's his thing, big picture analyzer, kind of a guy who that's his special strength. And I'm actually doubting whether that is Isagi's actual strength. He may be using that as his strength right now just to give a short-term answer, but I think it's bigger than that. That's what we're going to eventually reveal as we continue watching him as a protagonist, because I think it's too early to have already revealed his secret sauce.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually you're right. Yeah,
for sure,
absolutely.
For sure.
Shonens are always in it for the long run, so I think you're absolutely right. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on because narratively we could talk a lot about it, but I was actually curious as to how you guys felt about animation because we touched on it a little bit earlier. Close-ups on the faces, fantastic, awesome at like conveying the kind of like sicko mode moments that like happen in the show. At least for me, there are like certain moments where it cuts to the wide and like people are like running down the field and they're very clearly like mocap, almost like 3D models. Did you guys like pick that up and like did it and if you didn't, then that's like great, right? Because that means they like hit it just fine and it continued like the flow of the anime. But like I don't know if you guys realized that there was kind of like, I don't know, did the 3D, I guess, offset you guys, if you guys realized there was 3D there? Or the CG, the like mocapped guys.
Yeah. For me, I think early on it was very like out of place. Like it felt weird, right? And I'm pretty sensitive to like the 3D animation stuff.
Yes.
So it was definitely a case of like, this looks not particularly great, but it didn't like distract me enough to where like I don't like it. You know what I mean? It didn't distract me enough to where like I don't want to watch this anymore or anything like that.
Sure.
But I definitely felt it weird in comparison to everything else. And like later on, I feel like we get less of that. It was really prevalent in like the big like, we're doing this 11v11 games, but when they start getting smaller or when we're doing like small group stuff, it's like not as prevalent. So I don't know, it wasn't totally distracting, but it was definitely something that I picked up on. I'm like, y'all could have cleaned this up like a little bit better.
Yeah, that's how I felt, but I do agree that it became less distracting down the line. And you don't have any particular feelings about it, Jennii, would you say? Or is it just like...
Yo, I didn't even think of
You didn't even think of it? And that's A-okay. It's more of a... Yeah. I know in terms of like that stuff, it's more of a like... I was really zoned in and really like paying attention to it. And when you are doing that, like it becomes more noticeable and some people like focus on it. And it's a common discussion in anime nowadays. Now that they're like using more 3D, people are starting to notice it more, and everybody has a strong opinion on it. So I'm curious as we watch more anime, how you're gonna feel about it as you pick it up, because you're gonna pick it up. You will as you like watch more. That's just
this is a threat.
That's just I'm hitting you with a threatening energy.
Like, I guess I don't have a choice.
That's just how it is.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you guys have any more questions? Like before we get to... All right, Jennii. I love that you raise your hand every time.
I do it in meetings too at work, and I'm like, got one. So I know my interest initially when you proposed this as what we were going to watch for our first episode, and I know why I've recommended it to people that I've recommended it to. And lately, I've been asked this a little bit more, especially as I talk about our stream. It's easy for me to kind of figure out ways to say this is appealing for XYZ reason, you know? Like when I talked about Last Hero being one of my favorite animes is because it's got a unlikely hero.
Yes.
And he's also not rewarded very heavily. So it's more so in watching his journey and him doing it for the sake of the fact that it's good, the right thing to do, is very gratifying. And unique to see. So that's one that relates to people that I know that don't like to talk about themselves, that don't like to be paraded, that don't want to watch somebody else be paraded either, right? So that's what I use. I don't know how to get people to watch something like Blue Lock. It's unless you really love psychology, a fight, the competition. But I think there's more to it than that. What keeps you guys interested, wanting to keep watching Blue Lock? Because I think there are moments too where it's like, I don't know if I want to keep watching this for me.
It's personal stuff for me. It's easy to have the answer that is personal stuff. It's the sports. I've been in that situation. I've dealt with the camaraderie. As I mentioned,
with the camaraderie. Like,
God, I hated my teammates. I can't believe I had to deal with them.
I had friends and allies.
But it's the moments where you shine in sports, even if it's not like literal. In some of the biggest moments, a person's hardship shines. When they hit that like clutch shot, there's like a story in it. It's why I watch like a lot of riveting sports documentaries and stuff. I love knowing about like what led to that moment and that sports story. And when you're watching a drama like an anime sports drama like Blue Lock, and we're getting the mental stuff, even though it's like exaggerated and time freezes and there's no way people are like actually thinking about it, in real life it's less that people are actively thinking about that in that moment, but rather that stuff did lead up to this moment. That drama, that the stuff that they're dealing with, even though their body and their muscle memory like reacts in such a way, the force that propels that moment is that stuff that we see in Blue Lock. And it's riveting to me. I love that stuff. Is that cheesy?
No, I'm laughing because I was like, that's the end plot of the whole show.
Is that cheesy? Yeah, that's the. I was like, oh god, am I too cheesy? Yeah.
It's not cheesy. That could be it. It puts them through such trauma.
Yeah.
They're always gonna come back to these moments like, remember when Team W was against us? Like they're gonna have that flashback of like, the odds were against us. We fought 12 of us against 1. 12 of them was on another team, and we still fought. We still pushed through. And it's actually, maybe that's it. It's accumulation of all the traumas that lead to where they got to and pushes them this far.
Yeah, absolutely.
What keeps me watching? What I find really fascinating is that this is such a different take for like a team sports anime, right? Where like you think about like Haikyuu, or you think about like Critical Basket, and then everything else, where it's very much about like teamwork and friendship and all that jazz. You know what I mean? Where this one is very much about building up a single person, like it's feeding into your ego, feeding into your selfishness a lot of times, right? And that is really fascinating to me. And then it's just like when we get into scenarios where like we do have to work as a team, and you have these individuals that like every single one of these characters could have like an entire anime just built around them, right?
Yes, they can.
And it's like, okay, how do we get these people to like work together, but also like continuing further themselves like as their own characters, and like how can they, steal the spotlight, as it were. You know what I mean? Like I find that whole thing very interesting, right? We have an entire cast full of main characters. It's just like
we do.
It's so weird in comparison to just everything else. It's very unique for Blue Lock. So when I talk to people and I try to get them to like look into it, right after I started watching it, that's kind of how I pitch it. Where it's just like, some people that have seen like Diamond No Ace or some of the other stuff, I'm like, this is a very different take on that idea. Yeah. A very fascinating take to look at, and usually that's what gets them in. But yeah, it's just super unique. I don't know what to say. I'm just curious just to see where it just keeps going with it. Every trial just like ups the ante a bit more, and we're eliminating people, and boundaries and limitations are being shattered, and I'm just like, whoa, this is insane.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to add one comment that was made on stream real quick. It was about the 3D animation stuff. Sutenchi says the animation studio is the same that does Reincarnated as a Slime, I think. And what they're doing is working, and it doesn't stop him from enjoying the anime, but it does feel like they're struggling with the constant movement that happens in Blue Lock. So it makes sense that they would do the like 3D and stuff. Yeah.
When they're doing the CG and stuff, and it's like it interrupts the fluidity of everything else.
Yeah. So just that quick comment on it. Well, with that, I would like to wind down. I would like to do our like shout outs, and then I would love to hear what Jennii is going to force us to watch after this. Boy. So let's start with shout outs. Rob, do you have anything you want to plug or shout out?
Yeah, shout outs to anime. Shout outs to JSB. You can follow me on Twitter at SenosukeZ and OSUKE, where I talk about anime and video games and retweet artwork. We also do a video game podcast that goes live every Wednesday, sometimes Thursday. It depends, but we try to get it up on Wednesdays. That's on all the podcast services, and you can follow us on Twitter at JackSavageBase to know when all that stuff goes up.
Awesome.
That's about it.
How about you, Jennii? Got anything you want to plug?
I do. So, my cooking stream will actually be showing every Wednesday that we actually have this stream. So, I actually don't know exactly which cookbook we're doing next, but we've done Steve might cook, and so we stream on Twitch, and it's basically me teaching one of my buddies who doesn't cook how to cook recipes from his fandom of video game and animes and everything cookbooks. We also do random ones too, like the Snoop Dogg cookbook. I recommend that one. Actually, it's probably one of my favorite recipes we've ever done.
Got it for Christmas. Yep.
The lobster thermidor, amazing dish. Lobster, I know. And then also it's got Snoop Dogg flavor text, if you will, throughout. So it's like how he would describe a dish.
That's fun. That's really fun.
It's actually high quality writing too. Like the recipes themselves are really good at teaching people, and that's the big thing. Who would buy these cookbooks for video games or animes or cartoons or whatever? It's probably not your top chefs. So do they teach you how to actually make these dishes really well and use techniques to cook meats properly, to test that something was done, as well as it needs to be done? And so that's what we use on this show. We grade how well the cookbook did this. I will say Necronomnoms was one of our worst. It was purely just for fun to look at the recipes. Do not ever make anything from that cookbook. You will probably die of dysentery.
Oh my god, please.
I like the title though, Necronomnom. Very strong title.
Yeah, and the writing in it's fun. The pages themselves are kind of aged. And it's artistic. However, you may die if you eat something from there. We have that Wednesday on Steve Might Cook.
Awesome. I put the link in Twitch chat as well, so please give them a follow. And then for me, you can find me at my socials, twitter.com. I'm on Twitter, Pinoy Grigio. Same thing with Instagram, and I stream games and stuff here on this channel. I'm doing A Space for the Unbound right now. Hi-Fi Rush might start at Atelier Ryza. Am I pronouncing that right?
Atelier Ryza.
Yeah, might start that soon. And then at the end of the stream screen, you'll have the links to the JSB YouTube, the JSB Twitter, and all that stuff. Oh, you're starting Ryza too, Sutechi. Exciting. We could talk about that soon. So, without further ado, what is our next episode going to be on, and what anime are we going to watch? I'm so excited. Please. What is it, Jennii?
So, I'm a big scientist person. I literally work in science, technology. So, we're going to do Dr. Stone.
Oh, that's... Okay. So, this is another question, real quick. How do we feel about the one is 12 episodes too little, or did you guys feel like it was just right? Should we do... Dr. Stone's first season is 24 episodes, isn't it? Should we do 24 episodes? Would you guys be interested in doing 24 episodes?
I can. I go either way.
How about you, Jennii?
However you want to set it.
Because I feel like I could also do 24 episodes if we wanted to do it.
Depends on where you're trying to go as far as the story.
Yeah.
What's the meat of what you want to talk about.
Yeah, let me actually get back to you guys on that with an answer of where you get enough of the show and not like have to know everything that happens, because
absolutely
it is 100% an anime of science.
Yeah.
Which is and how do you make an anime about mowing your lawn?
Yep. Exactly.
So how do you make an anime of science without making it Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Yeah.
So let me look into where is like a good stopping point. But I personally enjoy the 12, but I also have a lot of other things going on. So
exactly.
was an easy one to balance was 12.
Yes.
But I think it's a good call to actually pick a point where if you've seen the anime and we're recommending them, then going to like the point where we know, all right, you learn enough to get a feel of the whole fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, then Rob and I will wait to hear from you, and in the meantime we'll get started. All right. So that's it. Thank you to everyone who is watching. Remember, you can find the recording that will be found on the screen. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate my hosts, Jennii and Rob. Love you guys. You guys are amazing. And we'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.